Okay, go ahead.
Thanks, man.
Who'd you got? You?
Soretta.
First day clean.
What is it? Drug or addiction? Not bad, huh?
That's pretty good.
A heart hanging by a thread. Alright guys, welcome back to the Lit Online Podcast. This is episode 25. I have my brother Mitch Payne here with me. We're going to do something a little different today. I'm sure I'm going to chime in, but I don't usually have people just like tell their stories on here because it's what we always do in recovery, but Mitch has a fucking fantastic story. And just to let you know, I worked at Steps with Mitch, one of my favorite people on this planet. We were obsessed with losing weight. We looked, talking about bloodletting and snorting fiber just to, just to lose weight. But he was about to tell a story. It was back when COVID was happening and it was on Zoom. And I was like, to be honest, I was like, I don't think this is going to be a very good story and I'm not excited to have to sit through this. But it was fucking fantastic. And I'm super excited to have you on, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Life is good?
Yeah, life's really good. It couldn't be better, honestly.
That's how I feel too, man.
Yeah.
Like,
very blessed. Super blessed.
First, I just want to ask you a question. When you hear the word abundance, what do you
abundance.
Is it like money? Is it love? Is it like family love? What does it mean to you?
I don't know. No one's really asked me that before. But every
time
that
was a curveball.
No, every time I think of the word abundance, there was this guy that we worked with for a second. His name was Joe Elder. Do you remember him?
Mm-mm.
So he talked about abundance, and he said something like, everything in the world is abundance. There's no lack of abundance. And so I just thought of that of like everything. I'm like, career-wise, like how the family's going to be, money, everything. And when I was first getting clean, I would think about like, oh, this is what I want my life to look like at this point. But I would have sold myself short. Like, really
for sure, yeah.
You know, like I just wanted a cot. Like, you know, like not to be sick
with a
anymore.
good sleeping bag.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
yeah.
Like phone service.
I remember Chris, the therapist at drug court.
Clayton.
Chris Clayton. Love Chris Clayton, dude. And I actually ended up doing work with him later, after drug court, but one-on-one. But he asked me like, what do I want from life? And I was like, I want a family. You know what we all say.
Yeah.
I want to work in recovery, which I wish I might have not said at this point now. No, no, I love my job is super dope, and but yeah, everything I asked for that day, I have, bro, and way more.
Yeah.
You know, and I had no faith that I was even gonna hit those goals at all. Like I was like, those sound cool. That's what I would like, but I highly doubt that that's gonna happen. I remember seeing Jen Jones working in recovery, and I was like, they will never let me work.
Yeah.
In a situation like that. You know, and they did. And I was like, and I've done great at it, you know?
No. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. You're fantastic. Really though, like, it was just one of those things, because like, when you're in it, it's like, I don't know how that would ever happen. You know, like, I don't know how I would court a woman and like have a child and like grow a family or like have a mortgage and just these things that like, you know, successful people have.
Yeah.
Like that's not.
It seems unattainable, like bro. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot where I was going with that. I had something I was gonna say. It was probably really good too, but.
That was my
bad. No. Yeah. So you can just. I'm sorry to throw you a curveball there. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, like what abundance means to me, and it's just like my life is abundant, bro. Like even though money might be a little tight at this very moment.
Yeah.
It will come one way or another, and everything works out, bro. Even when it doesn't, eventually it does, you know. So it's just the word abundance to me has changed. So when I first heard that, I'd have been like money,
yeah,
straight up money, you know. And it seems like when I don't stress about money, it just seems to come,
yeah,
you know. And it just everything works out, dude. And my life is abundant.
You always get what you need.
Yeah.
I mean, like there's like a million things that I'm sure I want. But
Amazon, dude.
yeah, gotta stay off there. My wife's gotta stay off there.
Dude, Temu for me for a minute was bad.
Temu.
Bad. All my clothes are from Temu, dude.
Are they?
They're great though, great shirts.
Oh, yeah.
Call of Duty special plops.
I don't know what
Dude's
that
like
means.
taking a shit.
I don't know what that is.
You know, shut the Call of Duty.
I know what Call of Duty
And
is.
it's the dude's like sitting down taking a Call of Duty special plops
I've never heard of that.
instead of special ops.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You bought that off Temu?
I did. Do you remember? Do you remember?
You spent money on something like
Oh
that?
yeah, bro.
Dude,
I got great shirts.
Dude, I need to be like, you need to talk to me before you buy things.
I got another shirt that says "fucketh around and findeth out."
Uh-huh.
That is great, dude.
You can call me before you buy things, and I'll just send a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
I will do that, and I for sure will do that now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to listen,
Your
but I
life
will
be
like to
more
hear your
abundant.
thing. Anyways, I love you, bro. I'm super glad you came
Thank
here.
you.
I appreciate you, dude.
Yeah.
And you can start wherever, and I'll just chime in every now and then.
Okay. All right. So, well, again, my name is Mitch, and I grew up here in Ivins, and I had a great childhood. I always tell people that if I had to do my childhood again, I wouldn't change anything. Like, I would choose my same family, my same situation, everything. So I grew up really just like a few blocks from here, and you know, as I was growing up, it was kind of like pretty much picture perfect. You know, like I didn't come from like a broken home, and like my parents were a loving couple my whole life, and they're still together. And
Your dad beat me in a race.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, they're big runners.
10K, dude.
And-
I was trying to catch him with all my might, and I
Yeah.
couldn't.
He just
He's impressive.
he does. He just they just love running, and like we got into it, and like it sucks. Yeah. And every now and then I'm like, let's do it again. Like it's the worst. But yeah, and then I have one little sister who was like an angel her whole life, and like still is, and then there was me who was like the black sheep. But I mean, I guess I was kind of like always like that. But I grew up, you know, I was never touched or hit or anything like that. It was just kind of like just a normal life. And I grew up, had good grades. I was like in scouts and involved in the church and things like that. But things didn't really start kind of going the wrong way for me until probably until like 14 or 15, I guess, when I started hanging out with like the wrong crowd, or like my group of friends was kind of like maybe not the best. Like I was obviously like a part of that, you know. It wasn't like but so we started getting into this and that and getting into a little bit of trouble here and there. Nothing, well, actually there was like some major things like breaking and entering and stuff, and so I was put on like little kid probation or whatever. But even during those times, I was like super like anti drugs and alcohol, like DARE program, just say no type thing, you know. And so as I was growing up, you know, like we would steal and do all this and whatever, but I was always like, okay, but just don't bring drugs and alcohol around. Like, no, because I always just pictured like people who did drugs and alcohol, you know, like under the bridge with like the brown bag or whatever. So when I was 17 is when I first got into everything. And how it started was I went on a camping trip with my buddies, and there was maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 of us. And we went up to Pine Valley to my buddy's grandpa's cabin. And while we were up there, the first night we were up there, my friend brought out a bag of ecstasy. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, why would you do this? Like, this was supposed to be a wholesome camping trip with the boys. And I was like appalled that he would bring drugs to this boys trip. And I was like so mad about it. And he's, you know, I was like, oh, come on, like it'll be fine, da da da. And I was like, no, I'm not gonna do it. And so that first night I didn't. I just said no, just like I was taught.
Yeah.
And I was a good kid. But so then like they did it, and I feel like there was like weed and maybe some alcohol and stuff, but I didn't do that either. But then, so they did it that night, and everyone looked like they were having the time of their life,
They
right? You said they were?
Yeah.
Yeah, it looked like they were too. And then there was like, I was just a weird kid in the corner, like not doing whatever. And so I like felt all left out and whatever. So the next night, you know, all this stuff came out again, and they're smoking and drinking or whatever. And so my very first chemical experience, you know, before a cigarette or a sip of beer
Ecstasy?
or anything, was a line of ecstasy.
That's
I
wild.
snorted a line of ecstasy, and it was like the best night ever. Like, I tell people still to this day, you know, it was like top 3 nights of my life. It was awesome.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, so I did it, and man, like, you know, you've done ecstasy, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, you know, I look in the mirror, and my pupils are like the size of dinner plates, and like Lady Gaga and Kesha were really big at the time, and
It
we're just like
sounds so
dancing.
good.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Like,
I
I
was
love
like,
Lady Gaga.
yes, and you know, like I'm just going around telling my friends, like, I love you, man. Like, I really love you.
And you did, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was fantastic, and you know, nobody got in trouble, and we didn't drive a car into a tree, and nobody killed any hookers or anything like that. It was just like a great night. And I remember thinking, like, I felt lied to about drugs.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, because like you see the commercials and you see the stuff that they tell you growing up, but like it was none of that. It was only positive experiences. And so I was like, man, this is like how I want to feel every single day of my life. But you know, I'm not some big drug kingpin. I'm like Mitch from Ivans. And so ecstasy wasn't a drug that I could just get like that, you know. And like at the time, you know, we're in high school and we're like not cool kids, so we're paying like $20 for a pill, and I, you know, that's like all my money.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would do it as much as I could, I guess, which was like, I guess, pretty often. But you know, ecstasy is not really a drug you can do every day anyway, and so we would do it, I guess, maybe like once a month, twice a month, something like that. But
that was probably the first thing I mean, I had a problem with weed and alcohol, but ecstasy.
I feel like it was bigger back then.
Yeah, it was for sure, and I loved it, dude.
Yeah.
Like I did it as often as I could,
Yeah.
you know, and like I'd go to school doing it.
I did that once
I'd
too.
do my work.
Oh, you would?
Yeah, when at school, I love school. You know, like I just that drug made me feel like everything was okay. And like,
Oh yeah, didn't matter what happened.
Yeah.
It's like it's gonna be okay.
until you do it for a year, then you can't have a happy thought later in normal life. You know.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, it puts holes in your brain.
Yeah,
It's like, that
I'm
would be
pretty
nice
sure it
to-
does, because I was like,
yeah.
I think they're right.
It's like
'cause
linked to
I haven't had a
severe
happy thought.
depression for the
Yeah.
rest of your life. Yeah.
and that's true, dude.
Yeah. Well,
That comes with a price, that drug, bro.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know,
Anything that makes you feel that good, for sure, is gonna
yeah,
take you back. Everything has the opposite end, bro.
totally. And you know, you get into them like, oh yeah, I want to try that triple stack Bart Simpson. You know, it's like so stupid. But like back then, and then I'm like, oh, I'm like a drug guy now. Like I get it. You know, I'm like, you don't want the ones with speckles in them, and you want this and that. And like I look back, and I'm like, what a nerd. What a loser I was. You know, like looking back on it. But it was great, and I loved it. And gosh, now I'm like thinking about all the pills, you know, like they had like Transformers and
Yeah.
Supermans and Playboys and everything like that. And
Acid was the same way. Jesus Christ, acid.
I've never done acid.
Really?
Yeah, I didn't ever want to do anything that would make me like hallucinate or like anything like that, because I did salvia one time, and it was like,
I've heard that's terrible.
dude, it was like the worst experience of
Yeah.
my life. And so I just thought that every drug that makes you hallucinate would do that. So I've never done mushrooms either. But I don't think I've ever even had the opportunity to do acid or mushrooms. Like I was never in that circle. So, so who knows what I would have done in a weird situation. But so anyways, I couldn't, you know, obviously I like wasn't doing ecstasy every day or whatever. And then so one day I was out in like Bloomington, like back in like the boonies kind of area, and we were just off-roading with some buddies, and it was like the nighttime, and that same friend who brought the ecstasy pulled out a bottle of Sky vodka and Red Bull. And I was like, at this point, I was like, okay, like ecstasy was great. So like, the door was open. So I took my first drink, and in hindsight, looking back now, I was an alcoholic from the first drink. So I took the drink, and like you feel it, and it's like all warm and everything, and like the best way that I can describe how alcohol made me feel was when like your power goes out at your house and you don't realize like how much noise like your fridge makes or the washing machine and stuff, and the power goes out and then it's just like silent. Like that's how alcohol made my mind feel, like cut off chatter that I didn't even really realize was there.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah, and I remember thinking like this is how I want to feel
For sure.
all the time, because like I'm kind of introverted. I get like I'm kind of nervous right now. I'm not like.
I get nervous every time I do this, bro.
Yeah, and so like, well, and
I'm like, what? Every time I'm about to start, I'm like, why the fuck do I do this?
Like, these are your 25th time.
Yeah.
You think Joe Rogan still gets nervous?
No,
probably not, huh?
I'm taking his spot, dude. I'm coming for his neck.
You good for his neck? So, yeah, that was just that. Like, it was just how I wanted to feel all the time, and yeah, like it made me feel more outgoing. It made me feel like I could like talk to girls, or like I could like get things done and this and that at first, like any drug, you do it and you're like, oh, this is awesome. Like there are no downsides.
Yeah.
And so that's when I really started to like fall off, because I drank alcoholically from the get. Like we would go to friends' houses and like older brothers would bring alcohol and stuff, and like I'm like sneaking off with a bottle like a weird gremlin person, and like I was drinking differently than all my friends who were heavily drinking for minors at the time, like we would go somewhere with the intention to drink, but I would have to be like drunk before we even get there.
Yeah, I was the same, bro.
Yeah, and so fast forward a little bit, I'm drinking as much as I can while I live here, and I lived at home with my parents and stuff, and like there were times where it was like close calls and things like that. But even if my parents did know, I'm sure that if and I haven't talked to them about this, but like I feel like it probably would have been viewed as like he's a high schooler who like drank. I don't think that they knew where it would end up. So anyways, I move up to Orem, and I start going to school at UVU, and I got a job at Mountain America, and I'm like, I'm on my own, and so my drinking increases, and it like way increases when I turn 21, and in between this time, I'm doing like a little bit of like ecstasy or like smoking weed, but I hate weed. I hate it. But nothing like real major or anything. And there was always that like, I will never do heroin and meth. Like, never. Like, these are like the fun stuff. That's like the bad kid stuff.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, get to Orem, going to school, doing my best, but I'm still drinking like as much as I can all the time. And it got to the point where I was drinking a handle of Lord Calvert Canadian whiskey every single day. And I lived in this BYU housing with a couple other guys, but they also drank too. So yeah, it wasn't a big deal. And but they didn't know how much I was drinking, or if they did, they never said anything. But I would always have to buy the plastic bottles because my closet would be full of liquor bottles, and I would have to take them out to the dumpster in the middle of the night. I didn't want them like clean around. Yeah. And so so things, just kind of progressed from there. I was like on a first name basis with the liquor store people, like just like stuff that shouldn't happen. And so I'm working at the bank, and one day I start like drinking at work. I have like a water bottle, like hydro flask type whatever thing, and it's like full of like mostly apple juice or cranberry juice with like a little bit of liquor in it. And then it's like, oh, now I just have like a thing of liquor in my backpack. So I ended up becoming a loan officer there, and I had a liquor bottle in like a water bottle, you know, in like my desk thing, credenza.
Credenza, rip rap.
Yeah, and then I kept a bottle in my backpack downstairs, and
I love that you remember that.
Yeah, I was just drunk all day, and it like, and I like moved around to different places and stuff, and you know I was getting like where people were like noticing it and stuff, but I was just like whatever, you know. And there was one time when I wanted to call my dad and be like, "This is a problem. Like I can't stop," but I don't know if I was like ashamed to or like what, because he would have been like so supportive and like, "What do we need to do?"
Yeah, I've only met him once, but they were super nice.
They're great.
Really nice.
Yeah, but you know, I don't know, for whatever reason I didn't call, and you know things just like kept progressing, and I got my my first. I got my first DUI in March of 2014. I wake up, it's a Sunday, and I was hungry, and I was like, well, I'm gonna go get like a Subway sandwich or something. But I was to the point where I had to drink as soon as I woke up. I kept a bottle in the bed with me, and so I would drink just to like stop the shaking, so that I could just like go on with my day. And so as I was driving to Subway, like I felt okay because I had drank. If I didn't drink, I probably would have been more dangerous to drive. But like, anyways, so
the cops didn't understand that.
No. So he pulls me. Yeah. So he pulls me over. I should have said that. Dude. Yeah. Like, listen, man. I'm trying to be a responsible citizen here. So he pulls me over and he said like my brake light was out or whatever, and he said that he could smell vanilla in my truck, and you know I drink whiskey. You know I'm not drinking Tahitian Sunset.
Yeah, what is vanilla? What does that mean?
I had like a vanilla pine tree thing. I think he knew something was up because I probably I'm not like the smoothest guy, especially like when it comes to like cops and stuff. Like I'm not like a tough guy, you know. I'm like, so anyways, but I had a 6-pack in my passenger seat, and then I had my, you know, hydro flask thing full of whiskey, behind the seat or whatever. And he pulls me out, and he does the whole sobriety test thing, and I mean, I guess I failed because he arrested me.
Yeah.
And so he takes me to jail. And that was my very first jail experience, was Utah County. So I get out of there, and I immediately go home and start drinking again because I don't really know what else to do, and I'm sure I was like way sick. And
how long were you in there?
Like probably not even a day.
Did you call your parents?
I did. No. Actually, you know what? The cop who took me to jail was like way cool, and he takes me to jail. I get booked. I'm in there like for a little bit. I don't even know that I got dressed out now that I'm thinking about it. But he drove back to my apartment where I lived to get my roommate to come pick me up.
No way.
Yeah. I should like see if I can find out who. Send him a crumble cookie or something. Yeah. That's right.
That's impressive.
It is. Yeah, he was really cool. Yeah, law enforcement was always actually usually pretty cool with me. So anyways, I go back home. I think I did call my parents and let them know, but I told them, you know, like I was drinking the night before at a party, you know, like whatever. And then so they took my license away for 6 months, but I'm still driving to work every day. But I had to wake up, drink, drive to work. I'm drinking all day at work, and then on my lunch break, I would go to the liquor store, but they knew me. Like first name basis, so they took my license away, but I didn't need it because they knew me, and so like they would just still sell to me.
Oh, right on. Yeah, things have changed today.
Yeah,
you'd have been fucked.
I probably would have. I would have had to like.
Well, no, if you had an ID, you'd be fine.
I didn't.
There's a way around, dude.
Yeah.
You found it though.
I think that I started doing that first names thing, so it's like, you know me, remember me. Here's my ID now for like if this ever happens. Like, So, anyways, I would get. During my lunch break at work, I would go buy another bottle, and then I would drink the rest of the day at work, and then I would go home and drink until I passed out. And that was my life for like a couple of years. And so later on, my parents bought me a ticket to go on a cruise with them. And I was like not excited to go on this vacation with them because I knew I wasn't going to be able to drink the same amount that I normally drink. And, you know, on a cruise, you know, I'm sure a shot is like, I don't know,
$20.
something. Yeah. Like, And so my big idea, and I couldn't like say no to go on this trip with them. So my big idea was to drink as much as possible from Orem to St. George to like prolong the withdrawals that I'm inevitably gonna have. It was a terrible plan. So anyways, I left Orem at like 3 in the afternoon because it was like super daytime outside when I left, and I'm drinking, and I just have a fifth of vodka, and I hate vodka, I think it tastes like a Sharpie, a fifth of vodka in my passenger seat, and I'm driving down I-15 just drinking vodka. Next thing you know, I come to, and it's like pitch black outside, and there's like a police officer like yelling at me like, ah, and there's blood running down my face, and I'm pushing myself up off of the pavement, and I'm like, what is going on? And I guess I still don't really know what happened, but I did pull over. I don't know if someone like told on me or what, because I'm sure I wasn't like driving straight. And so he's like yelling at me. I had fallen and I hit my head on my mirror on my truck and cut my head. And then next thing you know, I black out, and then I come to again, and I'm in jail in Beaver. And I black out again, and I come to, and I'm in my parents' car. Like, I just like missed a lot of
Lucky.
Yeah. So my parents,
That's impressive.
I guess, yeah, I'm lucky I didn't hurt anybody. You know, like
Yeah,
I mean,
for
prison
sure.
today. You know, you hear stories about that all the time. So my parents had like called highway patrol because I never came home. You know, I told them that I left and I never made it, and they were like, you know, they called highway patrol. They found out I was in jail. They bailed me out, and I didn't get to go on the trip because they took, or I didn't have an ID. That was my second DUI, and yeah, that was in November of 2014. And so
2 in 1 year?
yeah, I got 2 in 1 year. And so I ended up pleading guilty to that in like the judge's chambers of Beaver. My grandparents took me back up there, and I didn't even go to like regular court. It was like in the chamber of the judge. He's like, you want to just like plead? And I was like, sure. You know, like, what am I gonna do? I don't know anything about it, kind of stuff. So I go back to Orem, and by now my parents are like, what is going on? You know, like 2 DUIs in a year. And they're like, all right, we got to get this figured out. And I was like, no, I can handle this. I already been kicked out of school and for drinking. And so, oh, you get a package. So I,
Yes.
what is it?
Timo or Amazon, I don't know.
Is it Timu?
Something good. I forget what's
You should open it up.
It's
on
like a
camera
surprise
after
every
this.
time.
I like it like that too. So I had been kicked out of school. My parents were like, "What's going on?" And I was like, "I can like make this work. It's okay." And then very shortly, like within a month, I was at my job, and I was trying to stop, but whenever I tried to stop drinking, I would have like seizures. And so I had a seizure on the stairs at work. I fell down the stairs, and I told my boss that I had cancer, so she would like leave me alone. But she didn't, and she took me to some place to breathalyze me at work. And you know, I don't know what I breathalyzed, but you know, anything over a 0 was frowned upon at work, and so I got fired, which was pretty expected. Like,
Yeah,
I remember one time I was drinking at work, and I was like, how long can this go on? You know, like eventually this is all gonna have to tumble down. She was like so cool. She's like just such a cool boss. Always had cool bosses. Shout out to Heidi. So anyways, I moved back down here with my parents. They're like, all right, we're gonna move you back in here in Ivins, and we're gonna like love you and squeeze you and like until you're better, right? And I was like, great. You know, like that was a failed plan. I shouldn't have done that. Like the drinking has got to stop. And they're like, hey, like you can't drink. But I was doing like slimy things from the moment I got there. You know, like I can't remember if I had a vehicle anymore, but I didn't have a license, that's for sure. And so, you know, like I would wait until like one of my family members would get in the shower, and then I would like steal their car to go to the liquor store and things like that. And so I started to go to like detox. I would go to detox, and then I would think that I was okay, you know, after a few days in detox, and then just start drinking again. But I went to my very first day of or my very first treatment center of like 12. I went to rehab like a million times. And so I went there.
Which one?
I went to Lionsgate in Tokerville. And I think this is at the tail end of 2014, maybe the beginning of 2015. And so I was there for half of a day, and my insurance said that I needed to fail at a lower level of care before they would approve residential, which was fine by me because I didn't want to be there anyway. And so I started to go to IOP, and so at the time their IOP is where High Deserts is now, just right off Tabernacle. And so I was
Same building?
yeah, because the owner, Russ Talbot, the owner at the time owned that building too. I don't know, but so Russ Talbot owned Lionsgate, and so he owned both those buildings, and so or properties or whatever. So I remember Russ. He brought me in one time. Do you know Russ?
I met him a couple times. I don't know him well, but
yeah, he
I met
brought
him
me
a
into his
couple times.
office, and he's like, "Oh, like in rehab, you get to write your autobiography and stuff." And I was like, new to everything, and I was like, "Oh, that's kind of cool, yeah." And he like showed me all these like weird like Coke bottles and stuff that he had. He has like a weird collection. Neither here nor there. So anyways, I started going to IOP at Lionsgate, and the way that it worked was like you did like an hour and a half a group, and then you'd have a break, and then you do like another hour and a half or something like that. Gosh, it was like, I can't believe it's been like 10 years since this happened, over 10 years. And so I would go to group, and then during the break, I would walk over to the Maverick that's right there, which is now like, not Marv's, Morty's Cafe.
Yeah.
And I would just drink a bunch of cough syrup and then go back to group. And
That's wild, dude.
And that didn't last very long, so I failed at IOP. They didn't like that. And so I like
what kind of cough syrup?
I don't know.
Were you tripping?
No.
It just made you feel like you're
Probably
drinking?
gross. Like, I guess, yeah. I probably just couldn't make it to the liquor store or something. I didn't even have an ID. Did I? I probably had an ID at this point because I was buying liquor, but I didn't have a driver's license. So anyways, I don't know what kind. Do they even still sell cough syrup?
Yeah.
At Maverick, do they?
I think so.
Probably,
I don't know if they do
it
it
probably
now.
just like killed my liver with ibuprofen or something. Like it was probably just terrible. So anyways, I failed at IOP. I don't know if I got kicked out or just didn't keep going. Would go to detox a few times, and then I went to like my first real residential treatment, and that was Steps in Bloomington. And while I was there, like kind of like you with jail, like I love rehab. I think rehab is just fun.
Yeah, like sometimes I sit here and wish I could just go back to rehab.
Me too. It's like adult
and
summer
if they told
camp.
me 90 days, I'd be like, hell yeah.
Dude, yeah. Like you don't have to worry about bills or like anything.
Yeah, you're just chilling.
It's just ping pong and group.
When people were on great, when they were just like, I'm like, dude, you don't even understand.
For real.
Like you got a chef that makes you food.
Yeah.
Like you get to learn cool shit. Like what are you talking? Why
You go out.
Why are you mad to be here, man?
Yeah. Pickleball.
Yeah.
Ride a bike. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Especially like the deeper into drugs and alcohol you get when like outside life just really sucks. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you just
That's
all that you have to look forward to is like court. You know, like it just sucks.
That's what I've said about jail, because I always say jail is fun, but when your life is that bad and you sober up and you start to laugh again and you start to work out again and read good books and like just the basics of life, you know, like that's why it was good for me sometimes, because my life was so fucking terrible, dude.
Yeah, I've never really thought about it that way, oddly enough, I guess, because I mean, like by the end, outside of treatment, I was like homeless and nobody liked me.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, in rehab, I
Like,
can
we
at least
love
have
you.
some scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like I'm okay, and a bed.
Yeah.
So yeah, but even like the first time I went through, I was like nervous, and I was like, I'm not like these people because like they're using heroin, and I'm just a guy who's like an alcohol enthusiast. But like it was so much fun, and I did like 96 days in treatment, which is like not normal anymore. You don't really see that much like residential time. But anyways, I got out, And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm sober, man. I'm gonna I'm gonna do my best. And I didn't really want to go to sober living, but it's just kind of like what happens. And they're like, okay, when you get out, you're gonna go to outpatient tonight. And I was like, all right, cool. So I drop my stuff off at sober living, and I'm like, all right, okay, I'm gonna go to my first day of outpatient. So I leave and I'm riding my bike because I had DUIs, and I'm riding my bike to group. And instead of going straight to group, I was like, well, I'll stop at the gas station, So I go to the gas station, and I just immediately decide to get drunk on those Bud Lights with tomato juice in them, and talk about it. It was so gross. I had never drank them before, and I have not had one since. And I don't know if I just thought drinking beer with V8 in it was gonna mask the sense of me being drunk. I don't know what my thought was, but
that makes sense.
I don't know.
It's at least worth a shot.
Yeah, and it's healthy.
Yeah.
It's like eating vegetables. So I drank a bunch of those, enough to be pretty intoxicated, and I show up to group, and they're like, they weren't fooled for 1 second, and they're like, okay, well, you can't be in group like this. I don't know why I still went to group, honestly.
Yeah.
It's like I'm a good kid, and so I I show up, and they're like, well, you can't be here like this, but we can't send you back to sober living like this, and they're trying to figure out what to do with me, and I was like, can I swear?
Yeah.
I was like, fuck you guys, fuck steps, I'm out. And so I'm getting on my bike all drunk, and I'm trying to run away, and they're like, hey, you can't be out like that, we'll call the police on you. And I was like, no, you won't, you're my boys. But they did call the police on me. And so I'm running away on my bike, and I crashed at the Burger King on Main Street.
Oh my God.
I didn't make it very far, and it's across the street from their outpatient building. And
I know what Burger King, when I was doing keto. Remember that they knew me by first name.
That's right.
Daniel
Well, that's
so much shit.
when I was trying to go vegetarian for a month with my wife, I would just eat those impossible Whoppers. Anyways, so they did call the police on me, and the police rolled up, and they gave me a citation for a DUI on a pedal bike.
That's insane.
And so the clinical director of the program rolls up behind me. He talks to the police officers, and he puts my bike in the back of his truck, and they released me to him, and I went right back to inpatient treatment for another 90 days or something like that. And so I wasn't even out for a night.
That's so crazy.
Before I did 6 months.
So that your third DUI?
Yeah.
On a bike?
Yeah, on a
That's
bike.
one of the craziest fucking stories
Yeah.
ever.
And so,
That's impressive.
Yeah, they let me keep the bike.
You had to be pretty. They didn't impound it?
No, that would have been funny though. There's a junkyard dog guarding my bike. So, so I was there for another however many days, and I was like, man, I might actually have a for real problem here. And so I got out, and I was like, well, I'm gonna be Mr. Sober now. I've got this, And I went to sober living, and for whatever reason, they decided to put me in charge of sober living. So I'm everybody's king now. I'm the king of everyone in sober living. And I was about it because they gave you your own room and stuff. And so I was like, all right, cool. Everyone has to do what I say now. And so I dropped my stuff off at sober living. And
people get wild when they get that power.
Oh, dude,
yeah, it goes straight to that.
It's so stupid,
I'm the king of the losers,
Yeah.
Not that people are losers, but it's just
yeah, dude.
It's chill, dude. Chill.
It's so sober
just
living, man.
have some humility, man.
Dude.
Remember where you just came from.
Totally, and it's always the dirt baggiest of guys, and they're you can do your dish, But don't worry, my power didn't last very long because, I dropped my stuff off at sober living, and I was like, okay, Mitch, what would a sober person do right now? I was like, well, I'll go to a meeting, And so I hop on my bike, and I'm gonna go to AA. So I'm riding my bike to the Alano Club from sober living, and in my mind, so if you have Boulevard here, and the freeway's over here, and Smith's is right here. I'm riding my bike along the boulevard, and I was like, I bet that the road to the Alano Club is steeper by Wendy's, and so I better go on the street with the liquor store because it's gonna, it's gonna be easier. So I'm riding my bike right by the liquor store, and I just go directly to the liquor store. and I bought a bottle, and but I still go to my meeting. You know, I still make it for the meeting, and so I just.
Did you drink before?
I drank there, or I drank before, and I drank at the club. I was like getting drunk in the bathroom.
See, this shit is impressive. This is truly impressive.
So anyway, so I'm like, you know, drunk at AA, and one of my like sober living buddies or whatever they're called, roommates, like sees me. He like catches on that I drank, and he tells on me. He totally told on me.
You probably deserved it from your power trips.
Totally. Well, I don't even think I was sober living house manager for a day. Like, I don't think I ever told someone to like make.
You didn't get to bark at anybody once.
No.
That sucks. And they told on me.
Yeah, and they're like, get this guy out of power. I got impeached immediately. So I got kicked out, 72 or whatever, and I was like, fuck this, fuck steps. And whenever I start like drinking, and this happened like long before I started going to treatment, and like if I'm in like a weird situation, I'll get a room at like Motel 6 or whatever, and just like become just the dirtiest alcoholic. I'm just like bottles everywhere, Domino's pizza, and I'm just like I ride that as long as I can. And so I was living at.
Isn't it weird? I would just want to like be alone and like.
Yeah, just like leave me alone.
Yeah.
Like I just want to drink.
Just live in filth.
Yeah, and it got to that point when I, you know, started doing other stuff too. Just like I just remember thinking like, if everyone would just leave me alone and let me like use forever, like I don't need anything else. You know, just like keep me supplied.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I'm like living at the Motel 6 or the Nights Inn or whatever, and I chose that because it's right across the street from the liquor store. And one day my family's out looking for me, and you know, I left my motel room, and I leave the door wide open, and that's how my family knew that I was gone, because they came to my motel room and they said that my stuff was just everywhere and the door was open, and I had like snuck away to go to the liquor store, and I'm like trying to ride my bike, and I rode my bike through the car wash, and I crashed my bike in the car wash, and I'm stumbling across the street, and I'm in the liquor store, and they sell to me, and so I walk out, and my little sister's in the parking lot, and she's like, Mitch, the cops are coming, da-da-da. And so then the cops roll up, and I was like, man, I know I'm going to jail. And so I like unscrew the cap really quick, and I'm drinking as much as I can because I know that I'm going to jail. The police are chasing me around the parking lot. And whenever I get like belligerent around police officers or, you know, nurses or doctors or whatever, I start spitting on them and like swinging on them and stuff. Like, not very cool of me. So anyways, they arrest me, and I go to purgatory, and you know, I'm there for however long, probably not long. I've never made it past F block. So I was, and you know, I call my dad, and whenever I'm in jail, you know, I'm calling my parents. I'm like, will you bail me out? You know, like I'm that guy. And
I think we all are if we have the option, you know.
Yeah, just like get me out.
Help me.
You know,
I love you.
Help me. I'm done.
I'll do whatever you say.
What do you want? What do you want? Yeah, I'll pay you back. That's probably the biggest one they hear. So my dad does. He's like, all right, I'll get you out, but you gotta go to treatment. And I was like, of course. You know, like anything's better than drinking from this water fountain connected to the toilet. You know. And so I get out, and they take me up to Payson. So I'm going to treatment in Payson, and usually when I'm in treatment, I fall in love with some girl, and this time was no different. So I'm in Payson for like, I don't know, I feel like it was like 60 days, something like that, and I fall in love with this girl named Kelsey, and my rehab romances were different, and we're gonna make it, and we were true soulmates, you know, this and that. And so we get out, and you know, we're gonna make it, and we end up getting this apartment in Provo, and we're like, all right, we're gonna like, you know, do the thing, and we're like playing house, and you know, she wanted a cat, but I didn't want a cat, so we compromised and got 2 cats, and their names were Clover and Cleo, and so we're living in this place, and like I just can't do it, man. I like can't do like the real life thing, and I remember I would like go to these job interviews and like never go back, whatever. I started working at like this call center place, and they wanted me to like memorize like the military alphabet, you know, and I was like, this is not gonna happen, bro. You know, and so I still don't know the military alphabet, so whatever. And so I'm riding my bike home one day. I'm still on a bike. They took my license for 2 years, and so I'm riding my bike home one day, and I decide to get a bottle. So I come home and I'm drinking, and then Kelsey comes home and she catches me drinking, and like she was not cool at all about it. You know, like I don't know what I was expecting. You know, because like she made our house a home with these cats. But I'm drinking, and I remember she was like so mad at me that she hit me, bah, right in the face, open palm, bah. I've never been hit before in my life. I have not been hit since. I was like so taken aback that someone had hit me. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, this is crazy. This bitch is crazy, you know? And so, anyway, she was so mad that she was like, well, I'm gonna go use then. And so she was like a crack and heroin addict. So she leaves for a while and comes back with heroin. And up to this point, I had never seen heroin before. And she starts smoking heroin in our bedroom. And I was like, how dare you?
Disrespectful little.
Yeah. So anyways, I was like, this is unacceptable. She physically abuses me. You know, like, this is not a safe place for me anymore. And so my bright idea was to call the landlord. And so I called the landlord and I was like, bro, she is smoking heroin in your house. We as a team have got to get her out of here. And he was like, you're both evicted. So he evicted us both. And but he gave us like 3 weeks to vacate.
That's
right?
nice. You always get these nice people, man.
Totally, huh?
Yeah.
Like looking back now, I was cut a lot of breaks. But anyways, Kelsey left like that day, and I never saw her again. We like talked on Facebook years ago.
So it didn't work out, is what you're saying. Your
It didn't.
rehab romance didn't work out.
It didn't.
Weird.
No.
Did you know me and Cal started dating in drug court?
You did?
Yeah.
Did they know in drug court?
They did, and they supported it.
Oh, they did?
Which was
okay.
crazy.
I was about to like call Mandy and like tell on you.
Yeah, it was crazy because we posted a picture, or she posted one, of us at the Staley Ranch or whatever
Oh, yeah?
for Halloween, and I was like, why would you post that? And Sarge like called me and he's like, what's
What
going on,
is this?
Nathan? I'm like, well, he's like, don't lie to me then. I was like, well, we're hanging out. And he's like,
Is it Bowen?
better be good to our Hafen or I'll kill you.
Oh,
Not
really?
kill you, but,
Yeah.
you know, I'll rough you up,
Yeah.
basically. He threatened me probably a good 20 times.
Really?
But out of love, dude. That dude is great. Anyways.
He was great.
Yeah,
He
he's
was so
amazing.
cool. He cared about people.
He did,
a lot.
and he knew my dad, and he loved my dad.
Really?
And I think that's why he
Does he
loved
live
me
around
so
here?
much.
He live in Ivans?
Who?
Sergeant Bowen?
No, he lives, I don't know if he wants to tell her.
Yeah.
Up the Taco Bell Road.
Oh, okay. So.
Sorry.
Sorry. He's gotten dogs.
Yeah. I can hear him threatening me now. With love.
Huh. I didn't know that. I actually didn't even know that she went through drug court.
Yeah, we started the same day, finished the same day.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I think drug court's a great program.
It is.
Yeah.
Helped me a lot, dude. And that's where I met Ryan, too.
Pardon?
Ryan was doing his school hours there.
Oh, really?
That's where I met him.
Huh.
And we started talking about Nacho Libre, and that's how we became good friends.
Oh, really?
Now I got a cat named Nacho, dude.
Yeah, dang. It's weird how everything just comes full
Yeah.
circle. Huh. I never did drug court.
You probably would have lost it
I was a
long
good
from
kid.
what you told me so far.
Maybe
You wouldn't
not.
have made it very long.
Maybe not. I eventually get this thing. So, anyway, so I'm in this house with 3 weeks to vacate, and I went on like the worst bender of my life. And I mean, like I would like come to, and I only had like money for liquor, and I would like there would just be bowls of vomit everywhere, and like empty V8 bottles. I don't know what's up with the V8 thing with me, but when I was drinking, I guess I would just like drink V8. But it was always just whiskey bottles. And I would go and I would steal chicken across the street from the grocery store from like the fried chicken
That's AD.
place. Yeah. And I thought I was using my food stamps, but I guess I never was because one time like a lady chased after me and said that it like wasn't working. And I was like at the point of like about to panhandle to make it to the end of this 3 weeks, but I never did. But anyways, so I was with these two cats, Clover and Cleo, and I didn't have any money for like fancy feast or whatever a cat eats. I don't know what a cat eats. And so I would take frozen chicken breasts out of the freezer and throw those on the ground with like pepperonis and stuff to like try and feed them. And this whole time that I lived there, this final...
They survived the 3 weeks?
Yeah, they did. For this final 3 weeks, I left the door open the whole time because I thought that they would just like run out and like just live their cat lives. And there was like a dumpster in the parking lot of this complex. And growing up, when I was watching cartoons, cats love dumpsters. Like that was like the shit for them, you know. And so I thought that they would go live their best cat lives, but they never left. And so eventually, at the end of the 3 weeks, my mom comes up to help me move my stuff out because I had like some court stuff down here I had to take care of. And she's like, "All right, you can come live with us, and like we'll love you and hug you until you're better." And I was like, "All right." So as we're loading stuff up, you know, my mom was like, "Well, what about these cats?" And I was like, "What about these cats?" You know, like. You know, they're my cats. And she's like, "Well, we gotta do something." And like, I'm okay with cats. I like cats. I'm an animal lover. I was just not in a good position to take care of anything, especially not these 2 cats. And so, anyways, we go to the Utah County shelter in like Spanish Fork or something. And I was like, "Okay, here's these cats." And they're like, "Oh, there's a $16 processing fee per cat." And I was like, "Bro, like I ain't got it. You know, I don't have that kind of money. I thought this is what you guys did." And he's like, "No, you know, like we can't take him then." And I was like, "Well, I'm gonna leave him in the parking lot then." And he's like, "Well, you know, we'll have to call the authorities or whatever." So I just left him in the parking lot, and then we left. And so I hope that those cats are okay.
Yeah.
I hope that they took him in. Clover Cleo, if you're out there, I'm sorry. It's just our paths didn't cross at the right time. So
I know a place where you can save some cats if you feel like you can.
Here?
Down in Hurricane.
Oh. Where you can save cats or take
Where
cats?
I got my cats from.
Oh, I thought you said like bring them here.
I got them out the hood, dude. Out of the slums. These cats are living well now.
Oh, really?
So if you ever need a cat and you want to make amends to Clover and Cleo,
yeah,
I know where to go. Just throw that.
Like to adopt a cat?
Yeah.
I got like a dog and a kid now. Like it's like a whole thing.
Yeah, cats are like basically they just take care of themselves.
Mm.
I'm just saying, if you ever want to make it up, I can help you.
Maybe.
Okay?
Or just bring them here. I'll bring you 2 new cats.
Stop. I'll take
Yeah.
it. I have a problem.
For Clover and Cleo. Let's see. So yeah, we moved back down to St. George, and my parents were like, "All right, you can move in with us, but like you can't drink, bro, like for real." And I was like, "Of course,
Yeah,
I'm not gonna drink." Yeah, and I got kicked out that same afternoon for drinking, and I remember I was like,
Your poor parents,
dude, I know. They're saints.
They're so happy for you now.
Straight to the top of
Yeah.
heaven. So I remember as I was leaving or getting kicked out of this place, of my parents' house, I was like mad at them for kicking me out, even though like I broke the rule immediately. And I was like pulling liquor bottles from like under trash can bags and like, you know, stuff. And I was like, "I can't believe you would do this to me," you know, as they're taking me out. And so they take me to Switch Point, and I was like, "Ew, I'm not gonna go to a homeless shelter. Like, first off, I don't even know if I have a problem. And second off, like that's gross. This is like where losers go, you know," was my thinking. And so, you know, I dropped my stuff off there, and my bright idea was to just go pass out on the Taco Bell lawn, which had more dignity to me at the time. So I pass out on the lawn at Taco Bell, and I call when I wake up, I call someone who might be able to help me out, and it was like this girl from rehab. So I call her, and we go to a motel on Bluff Street, and she was not an alcoholic. She was a heroin addict, and so we go to her room, you know, and up until this point, like, my family doesn't want anything to do with me. I can't keep a job. You know, nobody likes me. I don't like me. And I was like, "Dude, what am I going to do with my life?" And so she's like, and I'm like sick now. And she was like, "Well, you know, like you can use some heroin." And so I did. You know, I felt like I had nothing to lose, and I just didn't care anymore. And I didn't care if I lived or died anymore. And so that's where I injected heroin for the first time.
You just shut it up right out the gates?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, I've probably only smoked it like 2 or 3 times, like maybe if like a rig wasn't around.
Yeah, you only wasted it 2 or 3 times?
Exactly. That's funny. And yeah, I guess I'll get into that in a second. But so as soon as I started using heroin, like all bets were off. You know, like looking back, I was like, man, drinking sucks.
Yeah.
You know, like heroin.
You don't even want to drink when you're...
No. That's what I've always said. The best thing heroin ever did for me was get me off whiskey. And so I went down that path for like, a couple years. And so obviously I was like using as much as I could, like we do. Every penny is going to heroin. And like, I just remember like when I was drinking, I never like intentionally tried to commit crimes or anything like that. When, I was just like, I just gotta like drink more. Like it was just like, it was all I thought about. But when I started using heroin, I was like I'll commit crimes to continue
You have to.
heroin.
Yeah. You have to do whatever you have to do.
It like changed me as a person. And so, and like I was only using 2 or 3 Bs a day, maybe at the time, and it was just like from the time I woke up to the time I fell asleep or whatever, like it's all I thought about. It's all like what can I steal, what can I pawn, what can I, how can I like convince grandma to give me $20 or whatever. And so anyways, I'm down the heroin path for a little bit, and it got to the point where I had been like working for my dad, not working for my dad, and working for my dad, and then I got caught like stealing money or something from his business. And
your dad's?
Yeah, and he like kicked me out of the family, and he was like, don't call, don't write, don't, like I was no longer a pain anymore. And so I remember like I got a tent and I was living in the desert in Ivins right here, and my dealer would come out to like sell to me in the desert. He was a real one.
Another good guy.
Shout out to Sam. Yeah. And so, it was like a pretty low place obviously, and I would walk. It's where Black Desert is now. It's like prime real estate now, but at the time it was not. So again, my timing was off. And so I remember one time I walked from, my little hut in the desert, and I walked to Family Dollar, and I had like a few bucks, and I was like gonna get a Snickers bar to like keep me going for another day or two. But I didn't. It was dark, and I decided that I would buy one of those like Jesus candles, like a Mother Mary candle. And so I went back to the desert and I lit my candle so that I could heat up my spoon. That's what I used it for. I was like, this is perfect, And
God in this.
Yeah, so I wrote that. So I wrote that till the wheels fell off, which really wasn't doing that long. And I was like, all right, I'll go to detox or treatment or whatever. And because it was like December and I was cold. And so I ended up going to a treatment center called Therapia, and I was there for 4 months. It was a really long program, and they didn't let you have sugar, which was hard.
Yeah.
And they separated the men and women, which like was
terrible.
I was not about it. Yeah. So I had a hard time falling in love, kind of, but I still did fall in love because me and this girl Teresa would sneak notes back and forth because I could see the girl's side.
It's like a high, bro. I used to do that in jail.
Yeah.
It was my girlfriend at the time, and bro, when you get it, you're just like, yes.
Yes. That's my soulmate.
Love,
yes.
bro.
So I completed that program, and then when we went to outpatient, me and her like started dating like pretty immediately, and so we like it was a bad matchup from the start using wise. She's super cool, but we relapsed here shortly after getting out of inpatient, and we were in outpatient, like we just quit going or whatever, and so we were like, all right, we got to get out of St. George because this is like the mecca of heroin, and this is where it's all produced, and we need to get out of here, and this is like all bad. And so her family's from Arizona, and so we moved to Arizona together. There is way more heroin in Arizona, and it was like way cheaper. So when I was here, I was using like 1, 2, 3 Bs a day. But when I lived there, I was gonna ball for like $80.
Yeah.
And so I started to use like probably about 2 grams a day. And eventually, I started using meth, and I don't remember the first time I used meth. I was just like, I'm just suddenly a meth addict. It was like it was always kind of around. I can't imagine that like I paid for it all that much.
Dude, meth was always just there and like available and cheap and like
lame.
Yeah, like it's just, but it helped you commit crimes. You know, it really helped you turn
my
up.
head on straight.
Yeah, it gave you the energy. You know, there's no nodding out when you're doing both. You're just fucking going.
Well, so that's what I started doing. I was just doing goofballs every day.
Yeah.
But like sometimes I wouldn't have heroin for one reason or another, and I would like do a shot of clear, and it was like the worst.
Yeah.
It just made me sick.
Dirty,
and
dude.
like
It
it was terrible.
Bro. Yeah.
Terrible. I always tell people that like I hate meth, but I did it every single day.
Yeah, same.
So yeah, we're running around Arizona for a while, and we're homeless, and we're living in my 2007 Dodge Caliber, and like I didn't have like a house or an apartment or anything that I could like tweak and peek out of the blinds of, so I would like roll a shirt up in the windows, and I would just like peek out of the shirt all day. And it was like the summertime in Phoenix, and I'm shooting meth, and it was like so hot living in this car, and it was just like miserable. And so my time in Arizona was kind of a blur, but it was like I don't know, like looking back now, like it was kind of good the way it happened, because like here, like I know I was using every day, but it was kind of like a slow death. But like there, it was like crash and burn, like in a year. And so my use had gone up significantly, my dirt had gone up significantly, and I remember I was like sitting, I don't know, I had reached, and this had happened before, but I had reached the point where it was like, it's not fun anymore, it sucks, it's terrible, like I'm pretty much just using to not get sick.
Yeah.
And
it's weird how it helps you. It serves its purpose for a long time, and it helps you for whatever reason, whatever you're going through, whatever you're trying to avoid, and it serves you and then all of a sudden, bro, it just starts moving backwards.
Yeah.
And it just gets dark and gross, and and you hit that point where you're just like, this is not fun, dude.
Yeah. And by then, usually your family's like done with you.
Yeah, everybody.
It's like, oh, I'm never gonna use this money, or I'm never gonna I'm not gonna sell my Xbox, or like just like all the things that we do. And so I'm sitting in like this apartment that we had got for like a month in Mesa, and you okay?
Yeah, sorry. The Wi-Fi's out and I'm bored.
No, you're good.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I thought you were like stopping us.
No, I'm resetting the Wi-Fi.
No, you're okay. So,
it's Kiana's birthday today.
oh,
Happy birthday, babe. 32. 32ist.
32.
32ist.
So,
sorry, man.
What?
You good?
No, I just was like, I'm just gonna go reset it.
Love you, babe.
So, sorry. So I'm like sitting in this apartment, and I had reached this point where I was like, I just can't see myself ever quitting this. But I also can't see myself like ever getting clean. And so I was
I remember that.
I was like stuck. I was like, man, there's just no way I can live life clean. Like I had been, since I was 17, I had never stopped using or drinking something. I had always had something in my system. And so I just didn't see myself changing. And, by now, like, it's been almost 10 years. And so I decide that, like, my best course of action is to just kill myself. And so I'm, like, sitting in this apartment, and, I'm kind of, like, wrestling with the idea. And I was like, okay, like, if I kill myself, my family, like, they might be sad for a minute, but then it's going to be a lot easier on them, because like I'm never getting out of this,
You don't want to worry about me.
Yeah, because I'm just like slowly, like, anyways, but then, at least then they'll know, and then it'll just be like, rip the Band-Aid off type deal. And so that was my way of thinking. In my mind, I was like, I'm doing something very selfless right now, because like I'm a dirtbag. And so I went to the kitchen and I got a knife, and I remember I was watching the Truman Show was on. You ever seen that movie?
Mm-hmm.
And there's like a part in it, like near the end, where, and he says it throughout the whole movie, Jim Carrey, and he's like, what do you say? Good night, good evening, or something like that. Like, he says good morning, good night, or wherever you are, something like that. And it was like basically him saying like goodbye or something. And when he said that, like that's when I cut my arm open. And so I cut my arm from my wrist up to my elbow, and I cut twice in the same like cut. And when I did it, like I immediately started freaking out. I was like, oh shit, like what have I done here? Yeah, it was like I kind of like came to and like snapped to, and I was like, what am I doing? And so I get like super hysterical that I'd done this, and so I call my dad, and I tell him what I do, and I tell him where I'm at, and then I pass out, and then next thing you know, there's like paramedics over me, and they're like giving me like a sternum rub to wake me up, and they took me to the hospital, and I had to get stitches. I think like 54 stitches or something like that. I had to get stitches inside my arm, and then I had to get stitches, obviously on the outside of my arm. And so this is the only tattoo that I have. It's just a cover up.
Yeah.
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can.
And so.
That's wild. I didn't know that.
You
I
didn't?
remember that part.
So they took me from the hospital to like a, B-med psych ward type place, and I was there for a week. And while I was there, Teresa brought me drugs, and so yeah, she's a real one. She had a Wu-Tang tramp stamp, so that's how I knew that she was a real one. And so
yeah, that's legit.
yeah, so
Wu-Tang tramp stamp.
yeah. So I get out of there, and we're like just still using again, and like that was not like my bottom or anything like that. And so we're running around, and I remember we're like in this Econo Lodge, and that's when I had that thought. I was like, gosh man, like if I could just figure a way to just keep the drugs coming, like I'm living in this motel room, I can live like this for the rest of my life. Like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, like I had no ambitions, I nothing like that. And I remember like my veins were so messed up from all, like I couldn't hit my hands anymore, and I could never really hit my feet. And there's even a point where like Teresa like put an iPod cord around my neck, and she was like trying to hit my neck, and I couldn't really hit my neck, or like I was afraid of like, I don't know what I was afraid of. Well, I don't want to hit my neck. Yeah. I guess like it freaks me out. And so the only place that I could like for sure hit was in the crook of my right arm, on the inside. And so I just kept hitting there, and eventually like it was just this big abscess. But like I didn't even know what it was really. I just thought it was like some sore, but I had never had an abscess before. And I'm using the same dirty needle over and over again. It's sharing needles with Snake and whatever their names are, and so I just kept hitting into this area around this abscess, and I was like, man, I should probably like get this thing taken care of. So I went to like whatever Arizona's Instacare is, and I was like, do you guys have like a cream or something for this? And they're like, no bro, like you gotta go to the hospital. And so I go to the hospital, and they take me, or I go to the ER, and they admitted me, and I had to have 2 surgeries on my arm right here. So
I never noticed that either, bro.
You didn't?
Never once noticed that.
Yeah, and so
that's pretty impressive. Yeah,
I was in the hospital for a week, and so I had to have like surgery on a Monday, and then surgery again on like Friday or something like that. And while I was there, Teresa would bring me heroin and meth to the hospital on top of whatever they're giving me there, and so that was really cool of her while I was there. And so I got out of there, and we're like running as long as we can, and we're at the end, man. We're like, there's no more Dutch ovens we can sell on Let Go or Offer Up, what I mean? Like this, dude, just like the very end. Yeah. And Teresa's mom, Teresa's mom called us or whatever, and she's like, hey, you guys want to come pick up your mail? And so we went and picked up our mail one day, and my insurance sent me a check for like $5,500 for the surgeries because the hospital was like out of network, whatever. And so we were just, rich
Yeah.
at that point. So we just cashed that, and we're like, this is the Lord's way of telling us that like we're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And we need to keep going, And so like we got a room for a month, and we got this and that, and cause like I had like jobs and stuff down there. I remember one time I was working at Bank of America, and I guess a loan officer at like a call center, and I was using heroin in the bathrooms and stuff. And one time my boss calls me in with her boss, and I was like, oh, this isn't good. And they just played back a recording of me doing a drug deal like over their phone lines. And I was like, ooh, like, is this like a first strike type thing? And they're like, no, you're done. So that's why I still had insurance at the time. And so anyways, we're just, flush with cash that we went through in like 3 weeks maybe. And whenever things got really bad down there, we would go to this place. It's kind of like a crisis center here. It's called Aurora in Tempe. And we would go there for a week, and then, they detox you and feed you or whatever, and then send you on your way. And I had been there a few times before, and this last time that I was there, I called my dad, and I was like, Dad, I can't do this anymore. Like, can you please get me out of here? Please help me. Like, I'm done. Like, Arizona sucks, man. Like, so he's like, all right, like we'll get you down here, and he did. He got me back to St. George. He bought me a room at a sober living house for like a couple months, I think, and got all my stuff up here. And so I moved back up, and I was like, all right, like, good to be home. And dude, immediately I started drinking, like dude, day one I started drinking, and it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
I hadn't drank in forever, and I think that like I just didn't have a heroin guy when I first moved back. And I drank so much that the house was in Santa Clara. I drank so much SoCo Lime that I stumbled down to Dutchman's Market, and I passed out like where you pump gas, like on the concrete. And I wake up in an ambulance, and they're taking me to the hospital, and I'm just like mad, just pissed drunk, mad.
Your poor parents.
Dude, I know. Dude, for real.
Yeah.
And they just got me back up here. And so I go to the hospital, and when I start drinking, I'm swinging on cops and whatever. And I had pissed myself like a couple times at the sober living house, because I remember I woke up in my own piss at his house, and I was like, this is disgusting. Like, these are non-livable conditions.
Yeah.
And then I moved to another bed in that same sober living house, and I pissed myself again, and I was like, these beds are gross. And that was before I went to the hospital. So I go to the hospital, and I'm so belligerent that they just kick me out. And I'm like fighting with the security or whatever, and so much so that they call the police on me. And so St. George police comes and picks me up, and they charged me with like criminal mischief and intoxication or whatever. They got me on littering because like a graham cracker thing fell out of my pants, and so they take me to purgatory, and I'm like so oblivious to what's going on that I thought that they were just gonna take me to my parents' house. And so when they roll up to purgatory, it was like my 9th time in purgatory for like dumb shit like this, And I was like, fellas, we're in Sallyport or whatever, And I was like, no, my parents live in Ivans. Like, we're not supposed to be here. And so they take me in, and I'm sitting in jail again, and I was like, I can't believe that I'm in this situation right now. I was back in St. George for like, a day or whatever it is, less than. And so I was like, I really can't believe that I'm in this situation. And so I called my mom, and she didn't pick up, and I called her again, and she didn't pick up, and I'm trying to call my parents, and they're not picking up. And I'm realizing that like my parents are on a trip in California for my mom's birthday, and I'm like trying to call them from purgatory after they had spent all this money to get me back up, and after they had done all this stuff. And it was just like, what? Like, I felt like so low in that moment, like probably the lowest that I had ever felt. And I felt extremely alone, and like a loneliness that I had really never felt before. and it was difficult for me because like I couldn't, there was nowhere I could hide. There was nothing I could do to make myself feel different. You know,
That's a rough feeling in jail when you know it's like
you just gotta sit with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Usually mine would be like when I was coming off heroin, I was just like, oh no.
Yeah,
You know, the first night you fall asleep, you're like, this might just be a dream.
Yes.
And then you wake up and you realize you're not going to sleep for another 5 days.
Yes. He's kicking.
Yeah, and you just sinks in and you're just like, fuck. Nobody wants to answer your calls.
Yeah.
Grandparents, nobody. No. You know.
Dude, I get a lot of those calls today.
Yeah.
You got a call from Jason at Purgatory. And my mom was getting those calls and she was not answering. And yeah, so it was like the first time that I didn't feel like I had any cards left to pull, you know? And a lot of times people ask me like, well, what was your bottom? Like, what was your turning point? And, you know, like, killing myself wasn't my bottom, or trying to kill myself wasn't my bottom. And, you know, like, having a bunch of surgeries on my arm or being homeless in Phoenix, you know, like, those things weren't like obviously the bottom. Yeah, but like, when my mom didn't pick up the phone when I was in jail this last time, like, that was like my big turning point. And so I picked up the phone and I called, you know, treatment center steps that I had been to.
MP?
Yeah, and MP picked up. Ty MP picked up. I didn't know him. And
shout out Ty MP. We love you, dude.
We love Ty. And, you know, I was like, hey, you know, like, I'm trying to get in treatment, blah, blah, blah. And I didn't even have an active insurance policy, and my parents still paid for me to go to treatment, like for a couple weeks, like out of pocket or something, until like an insurance policy would start. So it's super fortunate, super whatever. So, but I was in jail for a little bit until like they could come get me, or until I could like, you know, go to court and then get a release, and then they could come get me, you know, like the way that goes. But yeah, meth, I used meth in F block. That was like the last time that I used, and it was like the worst. But anyway, so I got out and something definitely changed, but I did go into it like, what are they going to tell me that I don't already know? Because I've been to treatment so many times, you know, because like even in Arizona, I would like go to treatment centers and stuff, and just like up and down the state of Utah, and but I was kind of like back where I started. And, you know, it wasn't really like they told me anything that I didn't already know. It was just like I was ready to hear it. And so...
it's a cool moment.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, like whatever they tell me, that's what I'm going to do. And, you know, if they tell me that I got to scrub toilets the whole time while I'm here, like I'm going to be scrubbing toilets the whole time while I'm here. And, you know, they never had me do that. But I had that attitude while I was there. You know, I was like, okay.
That's how I was this last time, because I was just like, I'm going to make sure I'm done with my 4-step this time. I'm gonna make sure my assignments are done thoroughly.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna do the best I fucking can on these things, dude, because I don't want to.
Because our decisions are the worst.
Yeah,
like,
and I don't want to go back to that, bro.
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna just listen.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's how I felt. I was like, Mitch's way does not work.
Yeah.
And so like I said, when I was like, what are they gonna tell me that I don't already know? They didn't really tell me anything new. I just started doing the things that they told me to do the first time that I went through rehab. Like, funny how that works, right? And so, yeah, I went through that. I did the whole inpatient. This is something that I never did before. I never did all of inpatient, all of day treatment, and all of IOP. I'd never done all that before. I'd go to like residential and be like, I'm good, or like start an outpatient and be like, you know, this isn't for me, or detox a million times. But I did all that. I went to sober living, and it was that same sober living house that I got kicked out of, you know, several times before, and they had to like ask me to leave, you know, because I was there for like 4 or 5 months or something, and they're like, Mitch, you gotta like
your turn's up, basically.
Do what?
Like your time is up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a better way of putting it. They're like, you gotta like live life and go get an apartment, and I was like, okay,
fine.
Yeah, but I like
you can get comfortable in those places.
Yeah, you know,
and then there's people doing good.
Yeah,
if you have a good like group, it's super helpful.
I had such a good group. You know, like my group was amazing, and I think that had a lot to do with it too, because like we were, you know, like hyping each other up like in a good way.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember I was like going in, and I was like, hey, I'm not gonna like try and be part of the cool kids group, and you know, it was just all like a really good group. Like the knuckleheads were kind of like the outcasts in it, so which was cool. You know, like I was in with like Rudy, like Rudy and I, our sobriety dates are like a month apart. Carrillo.
Oh yeah. I don't know why I was thinking of Perchette.
Yeah, and so like, you know, like
Paparillo, love you, dude.
Just some of these people that are still sober today, and like we're still friends today, you know.
Dude, I feel blessed,
almost
dude.
8 years later.
I just feel blessed to still be sober.
Yeah, me too.
Like I feel like I've had a few things go my way, but I've also dealt with a lot of hard stuff.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of death, a lot of but I just super feel blessed.
Yeah.
To be like a part of this group that has stayed clean, because I see when the people that have it and it looks terrible, dude.
Yeah.
It doesn't look fun.
Well, I mean, gosh, there's been people that like I was in treatment with that like I'm bringing to treatment now, you know, and it's like, dude, you gotta get this. Everything okay?
The camera just went off.
We good?
Yeah, we're good, play.
Okay.
We're good.
So it's just like, man, you gotta like get this thing. I mean, like I get it though, but yeah, it's kind of sad. Anyways, so I took all the suggestions. I stopped going to like the cool kids AA and NA groups, and I started going to like these nooners, where it was just like mean old guys.
Yeah.
And I found this guy named John Bear, who like had nothing better to do than work the steps with me. And so I started working the steps with him, and I would go. He was like old. I would go to like the retirement home that he lived in and like work steps with him. It was really cool. He died a couple years back, but when he died, my grand sponsor became my sponsor, and he's still my sponsor today.
That's cool.
I still meet with him regularly, and we still get in the book and everything. And so I'm still involved in AA. You know, I've held service positions almost the entire time that I've been sober this last time, and like life's just, I mean, like we had started talking about, life's just like I could not imagine where life would lead me, you know. And like I waited a year to get into a relationship was like a big thing for me.
I get why they say that now.
Totally.
I mean, Kiana did not work the first time.
Totally,
I was not ready. I was not in a place where I even knew what the fuck I was doing, dude.
Yeah, like totally. And so like I just hung out with the guys when I first started getting sober, and then after a year I started dating this girl who was in Al-Anon, and then we got married like I don't know, a little while after that. But so yeah, got married, ended up having a little girl who's 16 months now.
What's her name again?
Sawyer.
Sawyer?
Sawyer,
Yeah, that's cool.
And then we bought a house in February. You know, it's just like these crazy things.
Yeah, it is crazy, bro.
I remember when I went to treatment this last time, my first night there, I was laying in the bed, and I felt like overwhelmed with emotion, because like up until then my beds were like a 2007 Dodge Caliber, or the street, or a tent in Ivan in the desert, you know, or like the mattress thing in Purgatory, and then like I'm sleeping in this bed, and I was like, wow, this is like amazing. And I, you know, like obviously we see a lot of people like going through treatment and stuff, and it's like there's a lot of people who I think take it for granted because it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But then you see those ones that come through, you know, like how I felt, like, man, this is the Ritz, man.
Yeah.
This is like amazing, you know.
I think people
like
can get addicted to that though.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Because
Totally.
I can see how that can happen, bro. Because you're taken care of. You're like, I get that. And you get to go relapse again, and then you get to come back. Like you get to like live both lives a little bit, you know. So I can see how that could happen to people for sure.
Totally. Yeah, that was probably me there for a little bit too. It's like, well, you know, like my back's kind of up against a wall here, so.
There we go. I'll go in for a minute.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, brother.
But yeah, that was like almost 8 years ago, I guess.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I'm proud of you, man. I'm super glad to have you on this podcast, brother.
Thank you.
I don't know if one camera went out, so I don't know if the other ones are gonna go out. So I want to make sure we wrap this up before. No, you're good, brother. You're good. I love you, man. You do a lot for people. Everybody knows who you are in the recovery community. You know, everybody knows to call Mitch, which I'm sure can be annoying at times, but
no, it's always good.
You're always good about it every time.
I don't mind getting
Dude, my phone's been on Do Not Disturb for 10 months.
10 months?
That's why I missed your call.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Only Kiana can get through.
I was calling you, and I was like, why would you not pick up my call
I'm
right
sorry,
now?
dude. It's just that I seen it. I seen the little notification at the top. I was like, oh shit.
That's funny.
But the other one went out. Yeah, we better wrap it up. I love you, brother.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Too.
Sorry, man. So quick.
Yes.
Love you, bro.